My husband's out of town, and this is what my dining room table looks like. Hi everyone, it's Julia. This week I've been working on fabric cuffs, and I thought I'd show you how I make them. This is a notion that I have had in my arsenal forever. It makes an easy way of turning tubes or making fabric tubes. It comes with 6 different size cylinders, and then these little wire things with a little curlicue or a little pig's tail at the top. I'm going to be making a 3/8 inch tube, and the little instruction booklet will tell you how wide to cut your fabric strips, and I need 1.5 inch fabric strips. Now this is a cutting mat that I received from Arteza, and I'll have the link down below for you. I love how it has pronounced 1/2 inch markings. It just works wonderful for this kind of a project. Folding my fabric so that the right sides are together, and then I'm taking this to the sewing machine and doing a 1/4 inch seam on the one end. Inserting that cylinder through my tube. See that white yarn? This white yarn is going to be sucked up into this tube, and I'll show you. You want to fold that end over the tube end, and then stick that little wire up, and then turn it and hook that through. Now watch this. This is just magic. You just have to touch it, and that yarn will just get sucked up right into that tube and will fill this cord. Wonderful for making piping. I'm pulling that wire as I'm gently moving the cylinder, and the wire's all the way through at this point, and I can just pull it. And you can see that that yarn is completely filled that tube. I've made several of these tubes in many different colors. You need 5 different tubes for each of these bracelets. Next, I do put a tab on each end, and I'm using just faux suede. It's not real suede; it's polyester. And I cut mine using my Sizzix Big Shot with this Big's die that's called Labels and Buttons, I believe it's called. But if you don't have a Big Shot or the dies, you can also just use a circle. I have the top of my salt shaker here, and it needs to be about 2 inches across. You need 2 for each bracelet, 1 for each end. And then you just fussy cut that circle out, and then fold it in half and cut it in half. And you'll need 2 of these, like I mentioned before, for each of the bracelets. I'm at my sewing machine, and you can see I'm just squishing all 5 of those tubes onto one side of this, covering it so now the wrong sides are together. And then I just edge finish this just across the one end. Over to my cutting mat again, and I want to cut this, and so it measures 7 inches. And now it's to my table, my messy table, to find whatever trinkets that I want to add to these. I love adding these old earrings, different beads. This is a napkin ring on this one. I like different fibers for each of the ends. This is an old key, a cluster of buttons, a really unusual button that I had. And this is another earring. For this particular one, I decided on this brooch. Now, I collect a lot of these things. Sometimes at thrift stores will have just jars full of them at the flea market. I have a couple beads there. The beads need to have big holes. And I'm going to be just putting these beads on one of these tubes. This is the biggest struggle of this whole bracelet, is getting these beads on there. I should have had beads with a little bit bigger hole yet, but I managed. I just worked at it and I got them through. Now I'm cutting a piece of this blue yarn, which is going to be on each one of these ends. And that brooch will get hooked right to the middle there. I'm taking this to my sewing machine next, and I'm going to be using free motion for this with a multicolored thread. This is a sulky thread. In my bobbin, I have a white bobbin thread. And you can see what I'm doing. On each of these ends, I'm going to be attaching this blue yarn and just kind of meander stitching throughout this entire bracelet. Another thing you can do is you can, instead of doing free motion, you can add some of your decorative stitches to this. I do like to connect the tubes. Again, you don't have to. You don't even have to do any of the decorating. It's fun. These bracelets are fun with just the different fabric tubes. And again, I'm just doing some meander stitching and hooking everything together. And this is what it looks like, but you notice my ends are still apart. The next thing I'm going to be doing is adding some elastic. My elastic is an elastic cord, and I believe it's 3 millimeters. Again, I'll link it all down below. And it's in the color brown. I'm going to cut 4 inches of it, and then I will be zigzagging this to the underneath, so the back side of this one tab. I'm just going to be zigzagging across that to attach it. And then I top stitch those tabs into place and add a button to the other side. I have pictures here for inspiration. These are all added into my Etsy shop. A fun project to use up all those little bits and pieces you have. Thanks so much for joining me. Bye for now.